And especially if you haven't dealt with your inner child and inner teenager, the two of them are like,
oh,
we're back.
Showtime.
Like,
Hello, 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 and welcome to Well Shit. It really is that simple. I'm Claire.
And I'm Serena. On this podcast, we help you to understand about your 12 universal needs, why they are currently not being well met,
How to meet them in ways that work for you, and how to consistently do so in quick, easy, and simple ways that fit seamlessly into your life.
We'll also help you to understand how doing so will have a positive ripple effect in literally every area of your life.
If you like what you hear, sign up for more support with meeting your needs with your weekly Universal Needs Notes at theuniversalneeds.com.
And enjoy the show.
Hello, hello, hello.
hey, everyone.
Sorry, I suddenly realized just as we started recording that my mic wasn't in quite the right place. And so I had to pause and like slowly move the mic towards my face before saying, I could see the look on Serena's face going, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what is happening right now? And the good news is we solved one of the mysteries from the last episode, right?
Yeah, one of the great mysteries. I know that everybody was like, what was it that you and Joe were talking about? Because you hang on the Joe stories. Like, yeah. Ironically, it's what we ended that kind of last part that we ended the last episode on. He did hear the episode because we told you that this episode was so robust. Like, we were taking a look at the show notes that we had and realized we hadn't even gotten through half of them. This is probably one of the most planned out episodes we've had in quite a while in this format. Yeah. And he was here when we were doing like the discussion around it. So he actually did hear the conversation. So that's
that's why he said something that seemed so absolutely on point for an episode we hadn't recorded yet, because he had heard it, he just hadn't heard it being recorded, he just heard it being planned.
And he does sometimes come up with stuff like it's not like that's like beyond his capability to say something. A lot of episodes actually are inspired by him. But yeah, it was just I had a moment where it was in my head, I'm like, what, this is bizarre. I'm like
it's like the thing when like you've talked about something and all of a sudden you're getting advertisements for it on your phone, or like and the thing that I find uncanny, well, I think the creepier thing is when I've been thinking about something and I haven't talked about it, I haven't looked it up online, and then I start seeing ads for it. I'm like, are they reading my brain? I mean, if so, if you could like what's the word? Transcribe the content for me so I don't have to develop it and put it into a keynote. That would be fabulous. Yeah.
Not only develop it, put it into a keynote. Make sure it's organized too. Like, I want to know what I'm like, looking at.
Because my brain is so organized when it comes to content.
Well, and I mean, we say that, and there are things that we're in the day and age where there are things that kind of do that stuff ish, and they're not like
we avoid those things like the plague. Like, we don't use AI in any way, shape, or form, unless we're using a system where we can't turn it off. Like, we try to turn it off on everything, mainly because our content is proprietary and we don't want our content being used to train AIs, because we're the only ones that have it, and also because of the huge environmental impacts of it. Like, I find it wild that people are happy to just like use AI to make all kinds of silly pictures or videos of themselves, and I'm like, you realize how much damage that's doing, how much water that's using? Anyway, another rabbit hole that I'm going to tiptoe around. Interconnected. Exactly. That's such a good example of interconnectedness that we should have put into the interconnectedness episode. Anyway,
usually we try to tiptoe around these subjects in general.
Yeah. So anyway, so obviously in the last episode, if you haven't listened to the last episode, this is one of those. I mean, I know that sometimes we say this. I mean, this is a two-parter. Like, this is part 2 of a 2-part episode. There wasn't supposed to be a 2-part episode. It was supposed to be a 1-part episode that we then realized was actually becoming a 2-part because we'd only got through half of the content and we were nearly an hour in. So, like, if you haven't listened to the last episode, really go and listen to that first episode in this 2-parters, because it's literally one episode that's just been split into 2 pieces. So in that episode we talked about why shoulding, whether it's on yourself or anybody else, is so detrimental to needs. Like, that is like the negative impact it has. Because, and it was funny because when we first started talking about this episode, Serena, we'd initially put it in as like, stop shooting all over yourself. And if you've been involved in personal development for any period of time whatsoever, you're going to have heard that phrase. Like, I mean, that's a phrase I've been hearing for 20-30 years. That's nothing new. And that's the reason we'd already changed what the title of the episode was going to be, because it wasn't just that, there was something more that we were adding to that episode. But I think it's really important to look at this, as with most things in life, in the context of needs. Because, yeah, shooting on yourself in general is not helpful. But recognizing how this impacts your personal power need, how it can impact how we can sometimes use it as a means to try to meet our value need. Like, when you are aware of that, it makes shifting it so much easier, because it gives you context as to what's happening, what needs you're trying to meet, what needs are feeling pressured to be met, and therefore how can we start to, once you know how to meet those needs in better ways, it makes it much easier to start shifting those behaviors. So it does really help to go and listen to that first and foremost. And it's funny because I was like, as we were kind of talking about the intro, there was something I'm like, oh, we should put that in at the beginning of this episode. I have no idea what it is now, so it may come back. We may get to it at some point. Something that we talked about when we were on our break between recording these 2 episodes was something that Serena has found incredibly helpful when it comes to shoulds, and something that made Joe's head want to explode when it came to shoulds. So,
well, it wasn't shoulds, but it was a sidestep conversation.
Yes.
And
yeah. And so the first thing that we want to talk about is something that I do think that it is really important for us to say is entirely optional. And it is only something that we suggest doing by yourself. If you're going to do this with a trained professional, if you want to do this in a session with me, for example, like, I can help you figure out whether this is going to be helpful for you or not, and whether it's going to be beneficial. If you don't have someone to help who is going to understand the context of this, the impact it'll have to needs, and how that could potentially re-traumatize you and all those sorts of things, maybe avoid it. And if you don't know that, if you don't have a strong feeling this is going to be helpful, it's not necessary for you to kind of dive down this rabbit hole, but it can be helpful. Uh-oh, I see the face.
yeah, no, let's just...
You want to take a note of whatever that is as
No.
a possibility to discuss?
No, it's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, as I said, this is something that is optional. Sometimes it can be helpful for you to consider, where is this should coming from, or where has this should come from within inside of ourselves? Now, one of the reasons that this sometimes isn't helpful is because sometimes it can re-traumatize us, because it can take us back to moments in our life which is like which were traumatizing, which is why we've internalized that should in the way that we have. So as I said, only do this if you really do think it's going to be beneficial to you to do so.
Well, and go into it with your needs well met, because where it sent Joe into kind of a little bit of a
spiral.
tizzy on a different subject was because at that point it was late. It had been like a rough day. Like, the needs were depleted, and it was one of those things. Had it been the same conversation at a different time, it could have went much differently. And because the needs weren't well met, and that's something I do before I go hunting down where that voice is, where that gremlin came from, where those shoulds came from, I make sure that I do a really quick needs practice. And I'm like, all right, like, let me go through the needs. Let me get to a place where, like, if something does come up, like, when you're looking into things like your
I've got the
shoulds
capacity to deal with it.
yeah, it make sure you have the capacity to deal with it. Like if you're already in the hole, I do not suggest trying to figure out where the should is, because it can bring up, like Claire said, trauma. It can bring up anger, and then it can, I mean, and especially if you haven't dealt with your inner child and inner teenager, the two of them are like,
oh,
we're back.
Showtime.
Like,
you called? Yeah, exactly. And so this is the reason that, I mean, and if it is helpful, as Serena said, make sure you're well resourced and that you've got time and capacity, because it's like you might have to be well resourced, but if you've got like, okay, I've got 5 minutes before my next meeting, I'm well resourced right now, not the time. Like give yourself some space, give yourself some time, make sure you have the capacity, make sure you have the inner resources, that your needs are well enough met, that you're able to kind of go down and explore what's going on here. As I said, if you don't think it's going to be helpful, skip this step. It's not necessary to shift the shoulds. But sometimes the reason it can be helpful is that, especially if you're a kind of need to know sort of person, sometimes, especially if you're kind of neurospicy, sometimes it can be like, where has that come from? And the unanswered question of where has that come from can sometimes be more irritating and problematic than just knowing where it's from and being like, oh, I see you, I know where this has come from, okay, now I can deal with it. And so it might be worth kind of reflecting about, like, who have I ever heard this from somewhere else? Where have I got these sorts of messages? What are the did I get this from a TV show? Did I get this from social media? Did I get this from a family member? Did I get this from a friend? Did I get this from a teacher? Did I get this from a boss? Like, where are the places in my life where this has shown up? And where do I think it originated from? Like, as in, where did I first start hearing it? Or where did I hear it in a way that it had the biggest impact on me? Because it's like, yeah, you might have heard it once when you were a kid and you had a boss who said it every other day, and that's the boss is where it's really going to like land and really going to affect you. And the reason that this can be helpful is, one, because you can recognize very immediately, this is not me, this is not mine, this did not come from me, this is not because I thought this was a good idea, this has been imposed on me by somebody else, which immediately can have you go, oh, not mine. Like, that's yours, not me, not for me. The second thing that it can be really helpful to is you can kind of do an almost like mental return to sender, where you can sort of go, I can see why that person thought that. Or even I don't need to see why that person thought that. It could just be that was their way of doing things. I'm a different person. I am in a different situation. I'm living in a different time. And therefore, this is not relevant to me. And you can kind of do this kind of mental return to sender, like you put your shoulds in a nice little package with a big bow and you send it back to the person who gave it to you and be like, not in a, this is yours, I don't want it, but in a, this has no value to me. This is no benefit to me. So I'm going to return it to where it came from and I'm going to move on with my life.
I think another thing in that is a lot of times you'll find that the source of the should has absolutely no idea about your life, no involvement in your life, is really like an insignificant blip. I'm like reels and TikTok videos and influencers that say, oh, you should be doing this. And then some little thing goes into our brain. It's like, I should be doing this. And when you ask yourself, where is that should coming from? And you think, and you're like, oh yeah, it was this influencer. I'm like, get the fuck out of there. Like, you don't know anything about me. Like,
yeah.
And with that, I'm going to speak specifically to kind of social media on this. When you get that message of you should be doing something and you take it in. So if you're reading a post, watching a video, rephrase it as it's coming into you. Be like, oh, I could do this. I could do this. Like, anytime you hear a should, immediately in your brain go, oh, I could.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to tweak one thing that Serena just said. I'm not going to say often that it comes from someone that you've got no one to deal with, because truthfully, more often than not, these things come from family, from from friends you've known for a long time. So it can come from both of these sources. And so if it's and the thing I will say about that is that it's easier to kind of dismiss it and get rid of it if it's somebody who doesn't really mean anything to you. if it's somebody who does mean something to you, it's really important for you to recognize and realize. I'm just suddenly realized that my phone is not on airplane mode as I thought it was. That you choosing to do something different than what this person believes that you should do is not the reason. It's not going to be the reason. If it causes a rift in the relationship, it's not your response to it is not the reason that the rift exists. It's the expectation the other person had on you, which is not in alignment with your best interests. And a lot of the time there are ways where you can like navigate around this, because I think that's sometimes one of the issues is that when this has come from someone who is still a part of our life and who's somebody like, if I got a shit that came from Serena, I mean, one, I wouldn't, because I mean, I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing over here with your shits? Get them away from me. And we don't use the word should generally speaking anyway, so it's not really going to be relevant. But if that was where it came from, and this is someone who I love and care for, and someone where the relationship means a lot to me, sometimes we can feel like if we don't do what this person believes that we should do, that it's going to affect the relationship. Mm-hmm. And the truth of the matter is, we have to take it to the source. Like a lot of time, you can navigate around it. I appreciate that. I mean, I can't tell you the number of influential people I've had in my life where they've said, "Oh, you should do this." Okay, like. That's when, like we talked about in the last episode, as Serena was saying, like you can just be like, okay, like you say, okay, you don't have to act on it, and and internally you reword it. So it's like, okay, I could do this, or I want to do this, or whatever. A lot of the time you can deal with it in that way where you don't have to necessarily have that become an issue within that relationship, because you just go, okay, I'm gonna put on my should Teflon, and like the should can slide right off me, and we'll just move on and like nothing happened. If it causes an issue within the relationship, there are ways to resolve this, depending on the individual, and like nuance. It varies much, depends on the individual circumstances. But if it does cause a significant rift, we have to understand that as an adult, it is not right or reasonable for another adult to have expectations of what we should or shouldn't do when it, in the sense that, obviously there's some things that we'd really appreciate it if people didn't do. That's also reasonable. It's okay for us to have boundaries, but the thing about it is that a lot of the time these shoulds aren't boundaries, they're impositions. They're things that are being imposed on us, and it's not reasonable for an adult to impose a way of being on another adult that is not necessarily what is right for them. And if somebody's trying to impose something on you, rather than them setting a boundary and going, actually, I'm not comfortable with this thing that you're doing, and if this happens, then I'm probably going to have to deal with it this or this way, that's different. That's them doing what's right for them versus them trying to control your behavior. Having listened to the episode where we talk about boundaries and control, we talk about this a lot in that episode, and we help to kind of explain it a little bit more. But so if there becomes an issue because you are not willing to, can't think what the right word is.
Conform?
Ish. Yeah. I mean, that'll do for the moment, to conform to their imposition. Then the issue is on them, because they're trying to control your way of behaving as opposed to, you doing anything negative to them. It's the same thing of like, basically if they're trying to meet their needs or try to force you to meet your needs in the way that they want you to meet your needs, then that's a them issue, not a you issue. And I'm like, I want to kind of step away from this because there's so many different possibilities that could be existing in this situation. Yeah, I mean, like it would be so
Parents
easy
don't
to
do
like
this to their children at all.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to try and step around the rabbit holes. Otherwise, we're going to end up with a third freaking episode because we're not going to get through the content that we were supposed to get through in the last episode. And it's really important for you to recognize in this moment, because so often, especially if these are people who've been people in positions of influence when we were children, where we didn't have autonomy, we didn't have the power to make our own choices, it can be very difficult to start to shift that dynamic. And you getting really centered and supported in your needs being well met will help you to be able to make the choices that are right for you, even when they are not in alignment with the people who held those positions when you were a child. Does that wrap it with a bow enough for us to? Yes. Serena's like, I'm not saying a word. I'm not saying a word. Let's move on.
That was well done. And
yeah. So one of the things we talked about in the last episode was replacing the should. And there's lots of different things that you can replace a should with. And we've talked about this in previous episodes. You could change the word I should to I get to do whatever. I could do whatever. I can do whatever. I would like to do whatever. I would love to do whatever. I choose to do whatever. Like, these are all different options that are going to allow you to do the thing that you may want to do. And this is the key, if this is something that you recognize is an alignment and it's something that is going to support you in your needs, it's something that's going to allow you to do the thing that is meeting your needs while re-engaging and re-supporting your personal power need. That's if you're talking about it with yourself. If you are talking to somebody else and you notice that should wanting to come out, so that's where you can get into that, well, you could do this. Here's an idea of something. Here's an option for you. Here's a suggestion. Here's a thought. So it's like, again, what you're doing is you're presenting them in ways that show a neutrality about how you feel about it and allow them to decide if it's something they want to do or is in alignment with them, and for them to then make a choice around it. Because what you're doing is you're offering the options in a way that's not compromising or potentially warping their connection to their personal power need. Because if you offer an option but make it real obvious that you think that's the option that they want to do, they may get to the point. Now, the truth of the matter is, you can't. If someone tried to convince me I had to do something that I didn't think was in alignment, and tried to convince me I didn't have a choice around something I really did have a choice around, good luck with that. Like, that's not likely to happen in my world, because I'm so solid and strong in my needs that if you start coming at me with that approach, I'm going to be like, I see what you're doing there. Nope. Back there. Nope. That's not for me. Nope. That's a you thing, not a me thing. But so many people have such chronically and seriously unmet needs that their personal power need is so compromised, and their ability to see this stuff coming is so compromised, that we end up eroding that without really meaning to, or we could end up eroding it without meaning to. And it's like they're not strong enough in it to be like, get away from my personal power need. That's nothing to do with you. And so it's so helpful. As I said, it's not necessarily our responsibility. We might not be compromising that need, but we might be operating in a way that makes it harder for them to connect with that need. And that's really what we're talking about here. It's like, maybe I'm not negatively impacting their personal power need. I'm just putting lots of blockades up that they've got to try and navigate through to get to their personal power need. And we want to make it as easy as possible for other people to meet their needs as well as for us to meet ours. So the more we can do to remove those blocks and those barricades to them getting their needs met, the better and the more supportive that we are showing up in relationship with the people around us. So what we want to do is we want to offer the option in whichever way is going to allow them to connect most easily to their personal power need, in how they are choosing to either take the suggestion or choose not to engage with it.
And as we mentioned in the last episode, always make sure you get consent on whether somebody wants your opinion. Like, you start to feel that bubbling of the shoulding underneath, be like, do you want my opinion? I have some thoughts on this if you'd like them. There's a bunch of different ways you can approach that, but make sure they're in the space. Like, it even options, even coulds, even examples, if somebody is not in the right place or isn't in the place to receive those, it could hit negatively. Well,
and also read the room. I mean, one, you can check consent, but if they're like conked out on the does that phrase don't translate across the pond? Like this conked out? It does.
I'm from New England, so I don't I don't know. It does at least a part of it.
Yeah, someone's like completely exhausted on the couch. They've come in, it's late at night. They maybe haven't eaten their dinner yet or something. That's not a time to be offering suggestions to people, other than would you like me to make you some dinner so that you can eat, and then like, do you want to go to bed? Like that might be like that's a this is slightly different. Like we're not offering them suggestions about things that we think that they should do regarding their life choices, you know. Like it's like if it's like it's like, I mean, Serena and I will often offer each other like little nudges around needs if we think maybe we've forgotten about it, but like, hey, like a great example, like when Serena's around at my house, I will frequently say to, if I'm getting up to get myself a drink, do you have a seltzer? Like my question is, do you have a seltzer? Because I know that's how Serena stays hydrated. Or I'll say, do you want a seltzer? My first question is, do you have one? Because like if you already got one, I don't need to get you one. And if she says no, I'll say, do you want one? It's still a very open question. She can say yes and no, and she does frequently, but it's me checking in with like where she's at in terms of things that I know that she might need, because I can see where she's at. If, however, we're talking about things that really don't need to be discussed in the moment, and somebody is emotional, tired, they're obviously depleted in the context of their needs, leave the subject the fuck alone. Like that, just leave it alone. Take a note, make a reminder in your calendar to talk to them at another time. And at that point, then check in with them and see if it's consensual, see if it's something that they're interested in. Like, we don't want to be pushing our ideas and agendas and thoughts on people when they're already in a crappy state, because the chances are it's not going to land well. Like, the chances are it's not going to be well received. And even if it's something that could benefit them, they might be so exhausted, they're like, no, I can't even think about that. And then they completely dismiss it, and it's not something they return to because of where they were at when the suggestion was first made to them.
I was already in a shitty space, and then you came in here and shit on me too.
Shit it all over me. Yeah, exactly. So the first and most important thing is like, look for how we can shift the should. Like if it's a really obvious one, if it's like, I should really go out tonight. Actually, no, I really want to go out tonight. Like that's an easy like shift. If it's like, oh, I'm really thirsty, I should get a drink. It's like, no, I'm really thirsty, I want to get myself a drink. Or I'm choosing to, and it's, even if it's something that we don't necessarily love the idea of, just moving to that choose to is a really good option for something where we don't have a strong emotion around it, i.e. that we want to do it, but it is something that puts us in that personal power place. So it's like I'm choosing to eat this nutritional meal because it feels like it's what's going to support my needs best at this moment. I'm choosing to go to bed right now. I don't really want to go to bed because I'm enjoying scrolling on TikTok or whatever it is I'm doing right now, but I'm choosing to go to bed because I think that's what's going to meet my needs right now. I'm choosing to take a nap. I'm choosing to go for a walk, whatever it is.
Be careful of shoulds bedfellow have, because that's something like you don't want to replace the word with something else that does the exact same thing. And I've seen people do that. They're like, no, I have to drink because I'm going to get dehydrated. Like, all right, theoretically, yeah, you have to drink so that you're not dehydrated. And when it comes into the action that you're doing for yourself, like Claire said, I want to drink because I want to be hydrated. I want to drink because I'm thirsty. I'm choosing to drink to make sure that I'm nourishing my roots.
Yeah. And another one to look out for is I've got to. So should, have to, got to. They're all need to. And the interesting thing is, so need to is another really important one, because need, as we as we talked about at the beginning of the program, we're not on the program, we're in the podcast. As we've talked about, I am sure at the beginning of this podcast, at some point we've talked about the fact that needs are musts. Like what the word need means is that you must do something. That's how those two link together. So the word need to in this context is associated with that expectation, that pressure, that obligation, that lack of choice. All of those things apply to I need to. And this is the reason that it's important to look at how do we, yes, obviously we're needs focused, but a lot of the time what happens is that we say I need to or I have to not give us a choice, to force us into doing something that we believe is going to benefit us in some way. And the truth of the matter is that that's how it ends up compromising our personal power need. Instead, if you can go, okay, what is it that what's the outcome I'm looking for? Yes. Do I need to drink? Yeah, technically, logically, does saying I need to drink actually help me in drinking? Does it help me in terms of the needs that I'm trying to meet? Does it compromise my needs in the process of drinking? Yes, it does. No, it doesn't to the first two of those things. Yes, it does to the last one. So just realize I flipped that around, and then I'm like, oh no, let's make sure we're clear on this. And so instead, moving to that, I'm choosing to do that, because the truth of the matter is, do you have to drink? No, you don't have to. You could die of dehydration if you wanted to. Like that's an option. Like technically we have a choice there. And by engaging with that choice, and we're going to get to this in a minute, like in the the next section, we're going to get to this. Like the issue here is that we are thinking there is no choice when there is a choice, because the fact that we want the outcome means that to us there is no choice. And it's because we're focused on the outcome that we're going, well, I need to do this because this. And it's like, well, that's not the only outcome available, which means there is a choice available to you as well. So let's get into style. Oh, do you need to jump in?
Well, there's just a little, needs program, like just a little any there. It's kind of like the needs menu. Like, it's like, once you get embodied in this work and once you start practicing it, it's like all of a sudden you realize there's so many choices for so many things in your life, not just meeting your needs. And this does meet your needs if you do it in a way that serves you and other people. But just in general, like Claire said, I want this outcome, so I have to do this. And it's like, oh God, you have such a, there's a plethora of options. It may not look the way you thought it would.
Let's look at the option we were just talking about. Like, I have to drink water because I want to be hydrated. Well, you could drink water, juice, herbal tea, seltzer. Like, there's lots of different options. So even like that, sometimes we're going to need to break it down, which is what we're going to get into now, is like, how do we break this down? But the point that Serena makes is really important here, is that recognition that a lot of time we create these shortcuts in our mind of something that we make it true. And actually, sometimes we want to consider that and be like, is that the whole story, or is there more to it? Are there other possibilities here as well? So let's start to get into how do we shift the shoulds, because we're sort of already like teetering in that. But I want to explain what we're doing so that people understand. So if you're listening, you understand what exactly we're talking about here. So if you're not sure how to shift, just changing the wording, as we've talked about to this point, how do you dismantle the should? Because that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to break apart and dismantle the should and instead figure out what's really being said here. And one of the things that to do, one of the ways to do this is to figure out what is the end of the sentence. And what I mean by that is, what is the you should do this is normally only half of the sentence. The other half of the sentence normally is the because this, or if you want this. So you've got to try and figure out. So like, for example, where we were just talking about, I have to drink water, which is another version of should. I've got to drink water. I need to drink water because I want to be hydrated. That because I want to be hydrated is the end of the sentence. But a lot of the time we don't speak that. We don't say that. We don't even think that. We just go, I have to drink water. And because of that, we end up focusing on the thing that is creating this disconnection to our personal power need and the choice that we have, which is the thing that we have to do, or the thing we believe that we have to do, versus looking at the whole thing and going, well, what's really true here? So sometimes one of the things that can really help you is to add the word because, or add the word if at the end of that sentence. And then depending on obviously what the sentence is, which is going to be, and then finish the sentence. So you can then figure out what the more accurate word is to replace the should, or you can actually dismantle the entire sentence because the whole sentence is false. Like none of it is actually true. So for example, let's go through a few examples of this of what we're talking about, because I can imagine people going, kind of following, but not really sure. So a lot of the time we'll think, I should exercise, or I should move my body. Well, what's the end of that sentence? I should exercise my body because I want to become stronger or more flexible. So the key word in that, want. I want to become stronger or more flexible. So the should then becomes want, because we want the outcome. So it's like, I want to exercise or move my body because I want to become stronger or more flexible. That makes way more sense. And also, it feels better in the system. I want to work, I want to move, I want to do exercise. And then if you want, you can go one step further, and you can actually then change the want to choose to meet your personal power need even more, because want is more in alignment with our emotional experience and expression need. But instead, what we can then do is it doesn't even have to be instead. You can use both of them. I want to exercise or move my body because I want to be stronger or more flexible, can then also become, I choose to exercise or move my body because I want to become stronger or more flexible. So again, we're engaging with choice. And it's not I'm replacing one with the other. Then these two can work in conjunction. In fact, they work really well together. Like want and choose. The want makes the choice more powerful. The choice makes the want active. So it's like the want gives us the motivation for the choice, and the choice makes the want, it makes us one step closer to making the want a possibility, like, and actually bringing it to fruition.
And when you phrase it that way, like, I want to exercise or move my body, you may not actually get to the choice part right away. Like, you might not get to the action part right away, but just phrasing that, and like, you may end up saying that there are so many things in life that I'm like, I want to do this because of this. And it's like, and I want to do this because of this. It's almost like a reminder to yourself, but it's also like, that could easily go into that shame spiral and be like, I should do this, and I should do, I know I should do this. And it's like, no, I want to do this. I don't have the capacity to do this, but I want to do this, reminding myself.
Well, I'm going to say there's a key word that you said there that I'm going to suggest that we tweak. And actually, what I was about to say before you finished what you just said there was, we can actually finish the sentence even more so. So that might not be where we've got to might not be the end of the sentence. The word is not but, it's and. So it may be, I want to exercise or move my body because I want to become stronger and more flexible. And right now, I don't have the capacity to do it. Or, and right now I have an injury, so it will probably do me more damage to move or exercise, which will move me further away from my outcome. So we can continue to build on these sentences. It doesn't have to be that that's the end of the sentence. We can say, Serena said the word but, and but, as we know, invalidates what comes before it. We want to make sure that is still valid. The want is still valid, and both can be true. I can want something, and there can be a reason that now is not the right time to do that. And there might be another round on the top of that, which is like, and I don't have the capacity to exercise right now, and I do have the capacity maybe to stretch a little. So the more you start to build on these sentences, the more you add like those ands onto the end of it, the more you actually sometimes get to the truth of what's really going on. You can see the picture more clearly, and you can also lead yourself to possibilities that you might not have thought about yet. Because when you just focus on, I should exercise, we're cut off for the thing that's actually motivating us, which is the outcome. And once we get to that outcome, and we recognize, this is where you kind of, the content starts to kind of interact with each other. You can plug that in. Like we talked about the empowerment ecosystem episodes. Go and listen to the creator approach episode, because what you can then do is you can plug that outcome into your creator approach, and you go, okay, I want this outcome. I want to become stronger or more flexible. What are my options here? And then we can realize that exercising is one of the options. Stretching is one of the options. Doing some deep breathing might be one of the options. Going for a massage might be one of the options. Going for a gentle walk might be one of the options. There's lots of options here. And what ends up happening is that we collapse all of that into, I should exercise, and it cuts us off from all these possibilities that are actually going to help us support our needs in alignment with what's really true right now and what's best for us in the current moment.
So it's should and but need to go away, yes. And want and into the picture.
We want to replace should and but with other words that are going to serve us and our needs better. See?
Very well said.
I heard a little need to in there. So it's like, we want to make sure that we're starting to shift those. So this is the thing. It's like, once you start to notice it, like you can see this happening all the time. And it sounds, I can imagine you're listening to this going, fuck's sake, like, I'm never going to be able to say anything ever again. I'm never going to get to the end of a sentence. I'm never going to be able to get to the end of a thought. And here's the thing. Once you start to recognize these things, it's clunky like this at first. And you have these moments where it's like, all of a sudden you're like, oh, no, I need to. No, but I've got to. No, damn it. Like, you can kind of get yourself caught up. Once you get in the flow of this and you start to hear these little trigger words, you can be like, oh, I hear a need to. That probably is actually going to be a want to, or it's going to be a choose to. So how do I quickly flip that around? Like, you'll notice, like, I hear the things even sometimes when Serena doesn't hear them. Like, I'll hear the but, I'll hear the need to, when even, and just because I'm so used to doing this now. So like at the beginning, like, don't, it's important to give yourself, we talked about at the end of the last episode, give yourself grace as you're going through this, and look for what it is that we're wanting to move towards, the outcome, rather than berating ourselves when we're not, where we may be taking a step back or we're making a mistake or what have you, and instead acknowledging ourselves when we do make that forward progress. Okay, I was just checking that you didn't want to jump in. I was like, okay. So another example would be, I should apologize to that person. So again, let's finish off the end of that sentence. I should apologize to that person because I negatively impacted them and I want to heal the damage done and repair the relationship. So again, the should becomes want, because I want to heal and the damage done and repair the relationship. We want the outcome. So I want to apologize to that person because I negatively impacted them and I want to heal the damage done and repair the relationship. And like, if you look at like the previous example, there's actually, we've already added the second and that we talked about. Like, it could just be, I want to apologize to that person because I negatively impacted them. Well, that might not necessarily be the end of the sentence, because, and I want to heal the damage done and repair that relationship is the, okay, let's get to the outcome. What is the why here? And that's what we're looking for when we start to collapse these shoulds. We're looking for, what's our why? What is the thing that is driving us to want to do this? What is the outcome? And what is our relationship to the outcome? Is it something that we want to do because it is in alignment with us? Is this something else that somebody else believes that we should do? And all of a sudden that becomes a very different thing. So again, same thing at that point. You can then add to that want to a choose to. It's like, okay, I'm choose to apologize to that person because I negatively impacted them and I want to heal the damage done and repair the relationship. Like, that's what I hear in my head. Like, if there's an issue between me and Serena, I'm like, I want to apologize to her because I want our relationship to be supportive and healthy and in a way, and I want to heal any damage done, so there's nothing blocking our relationship. At that point, apologizing becomes real fucking easy, because it's like, there's nothing stopping me. I'm like, all I've got is the positive. Might it be an awkward conversation? Yeah. What's the discomfort of an awkward situation versus a relationship that means as much to me as mine and Serena's does? Like, it's a no-brainer. So we want to be able to use this as our motivation to start moving forward. So another example, I should say yes to volunteering for that cause. So I should say yes to volunteering for that cause. We want to end that. We want to finish up that sentence. Add a because or add an if. So I should say yes to volunteering for that cause because that's what good people do. That's what good people do. That's your social conditioning. That is the belief that's been put on you. Like, that's what good people do. So
I know a lot of people who volunteer for a lot of causes that I would not label as good. Just saying.
Well, they're trying to get their needs met through doing that. That's the reality of it, as it is with everything we do every second of every day. We done to meet or mask our needs, one of the two. So then we have to ask ourselves the question, does that social conditioning align with our needs? If the answer is no, the whole sentence collapses, because I should say yes to volunteering because that's what good people do. Well, the good people, that's something that's come outside of ourselves. Now, the whole thing then collapses because it's like, I don't have the capacity to volunteer for that cause. So to do so wouldn't be self first and would negatively impact my needs and the needs of others. Like, literally the whole thing collapses at that point. Now, it's important also to go, well, that's what good people do. Does the social conditioning align with our needs? Now, it may be there are going to be times where it's like, actually, I want to volunteer for this cause because it's something I believe in and I have the capacity to do it right now. And at that point, that should becomes a want. So we have to look at what is our why here? What is driving our decision? Is what's driving our decision an external expectation that's been put on us by somebody else? Or is it something that we would like to do? And here's the thing. If it's something we would like to do, but we've had this external conditioning put on us, then a lot of time we can't even access the fact that we would like to do it. Like we can't feel that. We can't enjoy it. We can't benefit from it because somebody else expecting it to us is basically sucking all the oxygen out of that like beautiful little benefit that's sitting underneath it. So we want to remove the oxygen. No. We don't want to remove the oxygen. We want to remove the thing that's sucking all the oxygen out of the enjoyment. We want to remove the social conditioning and connect to what is right for me and my needs based on where I'm at right now. And it could go either way. This is not if you've said yes to volunteering, then that's social conditioning, so it's automatically going to be a no. No, we want to check in. Where are my needs right now? Do I have the capacity? Do I have the desire? Another example, I should study. I should study. So again, we're going to finish that sentence with a because or an if. So this time we're going to use an if. I should study if I want to pass my exam and become a doctor. Like change doctor for whatever it is that you might want to be. So again, the should becomes want because I want to pass my exams and become a doctor. So i.e. I want to pass my exam and become a doctor, therefore I want to study. So that therefore is that how we can connect those two again, because we're focused on what is our motivation. And sometimes we're not necessarily, I mean, because and if like are interchangeable here, like go with whichever one feels right for you to finish that sentence, and then figure out how does that sentence need to be reformulated. Sometimes it's really easy. You just replace one word and the sentence remains as it is. Sometimes you need to shuffle it a bit in order for it to read right and for it to flow and make sense to you. And that's what we did with this last one. Like, well, I want to pass my exams, therefore I want to study. So again, it connects us to I want to study because I want the outcome that's going to move me in that direction. Anything before I carry on? Sorry, we're moving into a different section now, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't moving on before Serena shared anything she wanted to. So one of the things that we want to think about in this process is what are the consequences of doing the thing or not doing the thing? So like, what is it that we want to create? And therefore, what action do we want to take in order to create it? Like a lot of the time when we are in this should space, one of the best, if we can't figure out how to change the should, if we can't figure out how to collapse it, the question to always come back to is, what do I want to create? And that's creating in the context of the empowerment ecosystem. And so it's like, when we're thinking about the consequences of doing or not doing the thing, it can be like, well, if I want to create this thing, then if doing the thing helps me to create that thing, then it's something I want to do. And obviously it's something if I've got the capacity for it. If not doing the thing is going to move me away from the thing that I want, then that might be, oh, okay, actually, I don't want to do this thing anymore because I want to be moving in this direction. I want to be moving towards the thing that I want. If not doing the thing moves me in the direction of the thing that I want, well, maybe not doing the thing is actually the thing that I want to do. So this is where we start to understand like what the root of the should is and what the focus is in terms of the outcome. And this always comes back to outcome. That's the reason I say go back to creator approach. Like if we're getting confused and lost in that, go back to the creator approach, looks at the steps of the creator approach. Because one of the first things you're going to questions you're going to ask in the creator approach, what is my outcome? What is it that I want? What are the options towards creating it? How do I choose the option? How do I take action on those options? That's basically what we're doing here. Sometimes it's a quicker and easier way to do it with the shoulds because we can go, okay, that's a want, that's a choice, that's a get to. And get to is a great one. Like get to is one of those that I don't think people use very often. But I do think it's like there's a gratitude inherent in I get to do this. Like the very fact that you're saying I get to do this helps you to feel a sense of gratitude for it. Because what you're basically saying is not everybody gets to do this and I am getting to do this right now. Or I wasn't always able to do this and now I get to do this. Like it's looking at it from that side of things. Like, I mean, I know that one of the things that was a game changer, and I've talked about this in a previous episode with me in exercise, was when I was working with a personal trainer. And they would always say to me, like when we were doing reps of something, they would always say, you only have to do 5 more, or you only have to do 3 more. And we were midway through training one day, and I said, can I ask you a favor? Can you shift what you're saying there to, you get to do 2 more, you get to do 3 more, you get to do 5 more? Because the reason I'm here right now is because I want the outcome on the other side of this. I want to feel stronger. I want to feel more flexible. I want to feel better in my body. And this is the thing that's going to get me there. So I get to do 2 more. I get to do, it reminds me, this is something, it reminds me that I want to do it. And I get to feel more grateful for it. And exercise is not something I've really ever felt grateful for. It's not my go-to in the traditional forms. Dancing, you have me dancing all night at a club and I won't even notice it. But the standard kind of going to the gym exercises, not really my jam. The second you start to shift it to get to, I start to enjoy it more, because I'm like, okay, I'm getting to do more of this. I get to do more of this. And and when I do more of this, I move closer to the outcome I want to create. So I am that, and it's such a different feeling associated with it.
It definitely hits differently.
Right. So one of the times that can sometimes come up is like you thinking or saying to somebody else, you should apologize to me, when you're the one who has been negatively impacted. So the first thing to recognize here is we need to check in. Has the person objectively harmed you? Has there been an objective negative impact to you and your needs? And then what that becomes is a setting of a boundary. So at that point, you can say, I need an apology to continue this relationship because this person has negatively impacted me, which then becomes, I'm setting a boundary that says, I need an apology to continue to interact with this person. And if an apology does not come, I will no longer interact with them. You can then choose to verbalize that boundary or not. You don't have to tell the person that that's the boundary you're setting, but this becomes something you're setting for yourself. The thing about it is that so often in this situation, one, we end up with this, oh, you should apologize to me, when the person actually hasn't done anything wrong. All they've done is they've made a choice that isn't the choice that that person wanted, or we've done something where I'm no longer meeting your needs because they were never my responsibility. So the first thing is we need to figure out, is an apology actually appropriate in the situation? And then if the apology is appropriate, when we start to say, you should apologize to me, what we're doing is we are setting the expectation, we're setting the pressure. And in doing that, what we're actually doing is we are driving the apology. It's not coming from the other person because they're choosing to do it because they believe it's the right thing to do, because they want to do it. They're doing it because there's a pressure to do it. And in all honesty, speaking from experience, you get a pressurized apology from somebody else, it doesn't really hit that great. It doesn't land well. Serena knows I've been in many, many situations where this has been the case. And it just sucks. It really does. The whole thing sucks. Like nothing feels good about that apology, because you don't know whether they're apologizing because they actually recognize they've done something wrong and want to make it right, or because they've felt a pressure into it and they're just trying to do it for a quiet or easy life. But by setting the boundary, what you're doing is you're doing what is right for you in the context of this situation. You're going, okay, my needs have been negatively impacted. And what I need in order to maintain this current closeness of relationship is I need an apology to get me to stay close to this person, because the apology is what creates the trust. Go back to the relationships orbits episode. Trust is the kind of gravitational pull that keeps our orbits close to other people. And if I don't get that apology, well, there's a distance that's going to come. Now, it may be that you choose not to interact with that person anymore. It may be that the boundary is, if I don't get an apology, I'm not going to interact with them anymore. It may be I'm going to interact at a more superficial level. It may be that I'm going to no longer trust them with this, and this, because it doesn't feel like they're trustworthy with that anymore. And you can figure out what the boundary looks like. What is the choices that you are going to make if that criteria isn't met in terms of the thing that you need to stay close because you've been negatively impacted. And as I said, you can choose to verbalize it, verbalize this boundary, or you cannot. Like, there's a case to be made in either direction on this front. Like sometimes, like if it was Serena and I, there's no way I would implement a boundary like that without having a conversation with her, because that's the level of relationship we have. That's the trust we have. And I trust her that if I'm going to say something about this, that she's going to want to do something about it, because that's the kind of relationship we have. If it's somebody who I don't really trust to respond to that conversation, I'm probably not going to have the conversation. I'm probably just going to see how they choose to move. And I'm going to move accordingly, depending on what their movements are. I saw you take notes. Is this a now? Or,
this is the actual like current note. Somewhere where this shows up a lot, and it's actually not in our notes, is when we are kind of what's the word I'm looking, not recollecting, but yeah, I guess recollecting on like past things. I should have done this. I should have done it this way. I should have, in the past form, does just as much damage as I should in the present tense, I feel. And finding the things that can help you replace that, I think, is really important as well. So like I go to I wish I had done it this way. Like in retrospect, I could have done it this way. Like next time, I think I'll do it this way, rather than being like, I should have done this, because then you're putting that expectation right back on yourself and setting yourself up. All of a sudden you go and figure out, oh, where's that should coming from? You're like, oh, fuck, it's me. Like I shoulded myself.
Right. Well, it's also looking at what can you do to shift what happened in the past. So it's like, yes, you can look at what would you like to do next time you're in a similar situation, so you can figure out how to make things shift going forward. But also you can look at like, oh, I shouldn't have done that in the past. You can go back and apologize for that. If that's something that's like, I did this I had a very good friend of mine. I apologized something 15 years later, because I didn't realize at the time what I had done and the impact it was going to have had. And I was doing some personal work, and I had this moment of like, oh, fuck, I see what I did then. And this is a me issue, and I've made the mistake. And yes, I could look at it, and I could have looked at it and gone, okay, going forward, when I'm in these sorts of situations, here's what I'm going to do with it. I went back to that person, and it was one of the most beautiful moments I've ever had in any friendship ever in my life, because this person themselves didn't know how much they needed an apology from me until they got one. And like both of us were in tears. The person in question was somebody who we weren't in the same place, so we were doing it over like text, messaging back and forth. We were both in tears. We were messaging each other, like good tears. Like it was like, okay, we felt the connection and we felt the trust resume. And it was like, and that's like one version of it. Is like if you've done something to negatively impact somebody else in the past. It could just be a choice that you've made, where it could be like, oh, I should have chosen to go down this path versus this path. Well, actually, is there a way back to that path? Or is there a similar path that's somewhere between the two, where you can start to, oh, she says, smacking the ring light, like navigate through to a different place? So I think that a lot of the time when it comes to shoulds of the past, a lot of people feel very stuck, in the sense where it's like, well, there's nothing I can do about it now, because that's back then, and I should have done it differently, and I didn't do it differently. And like, you can focus on the future, but also you can look at like, what can I do to address the thing that did or didn't happen? I remember what the thing was I was going to start off this podcast episode with, and I'm going to drop it in now because it's relevant, is that when we're talking about shouldn'ts are just as important. Like this applies as much to should nots as it does to shoulds. It applies as much to have nots as it does to haves. It applies as much to need to not as it does to need to. It applies as much to I can't think what the opposite of got to would be. I've got to not, maybe. I don't know. That's not a very common phrase. But when we're talking about, because basically when we're saying I should not do this, we're saying I should do this, i.e. that there's a different thing that we should be doing other than the thing we should not be doing. So when we're talking about these things, all of the things we're talking about apply as much to the should nots as they do to the shoulds. And sometimes when we're looking at trying to shift it, that sometimes when we're in the should not space, we can get a little bit confused as to how to shift the language and how to move it in a different direction, sometimes what can help is to flip the language so that we figure out what the should version of that is. So for example, it's like, I should not exercise right now. Might be, I should rest. So you look at what the corresponding should is to the should not, and then you can go through this process with that should. Because sometimes when it's in a negative, like when we're talking about the negative, it can be a little hard to figure out because everything starts to become, we're dealing with a bunch of negatives and we're not really sure. And ultimately, when we're wanting to move forward, we're wanting to move forward with the thing that we want versus the thing that we don't want. Like we're wanting to meet our needs, that our needs are better met by doing the things that we want to do than the things we don't want to do. And so if we get into that space where we talk about the should nots, if you can shift the should nots and it's easy, great. And if you're struggling a little bit with that, shift that to a should, like figure out what the rephrasing of it is that has the word should in it as opposed to the should not, and then do this process with that. So when we're dealing with the you shoulds, so obviously we've been talking about I should a lot in this, and we talked about like you should apologize in the last one. But when we start to look at the you shoulds, whether we're saying it to ourselves, whether you're, well, that's I should, whether when you're saying it versus when somebody else is saying it. So like if you're saying you should, you want to go through what we've talked about so far to this point. We want to look at, is this consensual? Is this the right time? Do we want to offer options? Like the second we start to notice ourselves doing that, instead we want to drop into supporter approach, which is how do we support somebody with creating what is right for them. And if you haven't already listened to it, go and listen to the supporter approach episode, because that will help you with some framework for how to go about doing that. So what happens if somebody says it to you? Now, if somebody says it to you and you're close enough to them, you have that a good enough relationship where you can have a conversation with them about it. If Serena said, you should to me, then if we're close enough that I'm able to communicate with Serena that actually that's a word that I'm finding isn't really supportive in my life, and can we start to avoid the word should? Can we find different ways of phrasing it and then have the conversation? So like if Serena says you should do this, I'd be like, you know what? I'm finding the word should really isn't helping me these days. Can you find a different, like, is there are you offering me an option? Are you offering me suggestion? So it's like we can have that kind of conversation around it. And in those relationships, that's what you want to do. You want to have those conversations, because if you're having so close with somebody and they every time you're around them, they use a word and you're like, oh, that's not helpful. That's not really going to be supportive to your relationship. You're probably going to want to spend less time around them if you're kind of thing all the way through it. When somebody else says it to you, and you are not close enough to them to have this conversation, this is where we come back to the thing that Serena was talking about in the last episode, which is you can just say, okay, and then still make the decision that works best. Reword it in your mind. You can you can create a little internal filter in your mind that if someone says, you should do this, okay, inside, I could do this. That's an option I could consider. Like you can start to reword it in your mind and then make the decision that works best for you. If they continue to push you, you can say something to the effect of, I understand that's your perspective. Thanks for sharing it with me. So it's like you're acknowledging what they have said, because it might be they're like, and if necessary, you can then set a boundary with them. You can be like, actually, I understand that's what would work for you in this situation. That really doesn't work for me. So I'm going to do something different. And if you continue to push on this, then I'm going to end this conversation. I'm going to leave, or I'm going to do whatever it is that I'm going to do in order to manage my boundaries around what is happening right now.
Sometimes, like Claire said, if it's in a situation where you really don't want to get into that conversation about changing language, kind of like what we do with the C word, is we might repeat it back, or we'll say something. So in the you should do this, I might say, oh yeah, I could do this, and move right along, because
yes,
in their mind
you reword it.
Mm-hmm. You've reworded it, but they're still like, they're like, oh, they're taking my option. Now that's a deep rabbit hole of letting them think that they're right or whatever. But sometimes that's what because there are some times where if I just said okay to somebody in a conversation, it would almost propel them to get into it further because they'd want to hear something more. So if you're like, I could do that.
Well, and also by doing that, what you're in effect doing is you're starting to shift the language within the group context. So you're offering them a different suggestion. So if somebody's paying any attention, if someone's paying any attention when they're having a conversation with me, and they're using one word over and over and over again, and every time they use that word, I shift it and change it to something else, then they might be like, oh. And more importantly, you're offering them an alternative. So the next time they want to use it, there's a different option that's available to them. They may not choose to take that option, but the option is available. You are making it easier for them to use different wording if they would like to choose to do so. Now, it's so important to say this is incredibly nuanced and complex. This is very situation dependent. The sort of Cliff Notes version, if you like, the simplified version is, where possible, avoid the word should. If you can just reword it, great. But if you can provide the full sentence, it will often help you to determine whether the should needs to be changed or whether the whole sentence is problematic. You can look at that once you start to look at the full sentence rather than just the clipped bit at the beginning. It reminds me of, like, there's so many sayings that we have in our culture where we use the first part of a phrase and most of us don't even know that the second part of the phrase exists. And there's so many examples of this, and I'm trying to think of one of them right now. Like, I can't remember what the end of the phrase is, but like, I believe that blood is thicker than water. And then there's an end to that sentence that actually changes the entire meaning of it, because it sounds like blood that's thicker than water. What it's saying is family is what matters above all. But when you listen to the whole sentence, it means something else. So we'll look it up and we'll put it in the show notes as to what the end of that sentence is. But there's so many of these where if you only have, I think the jack of all trades, master of none is another one where, there's an end to that sentence which flips the meaning completely. As I said, we'll look these up and we'll add the whole things. But it reminds me of this.
I think the jack of all trades is like the master of none is the.
I believe there's more to that
even
phrase.
More to that. Oh,
yes. I said I could be wrong. I believe there's more to that phrase that actually flips it, so that, because basically jack of all trades, master of none means that somebody who hasn't specialized in one thing is not really masterful. But I believe that there is an end to that sentence where it conveys that there's a positive to being to having your skill set spread. Now, as I said, I can't think. I mean, this is one of the things we haven't added into our planning. So I'm kind of coming off this off the top of my head. There's a few versions of this, of lots of different phrases where if you just take the first part of it, it seems to be saying one thing, but once you put the full sentence in there, all of a sudden the entire meaning changes. And this is exactly the same thing. If you just look at that first part of the phrase, then it seems to be saying one thing, but once you put the whole sentence together, you go, oh, that's not what I thought it meant. Okay, now we can start making different choices accordingly. Anything you want to add? Like, I can see your.
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it very much. We'll be back next week with another episode, probably not about shoulds this time. And between now and then, remember to stay safe, take care of yourself, and continue to meet your own needs. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye, friends.
Okay, so we just finished recording, and I had made some comments at the end of that episode about quotes that had, if you added an extra bit onto them, it changed the meaning of the entire thing. And I had to immediately look them up, and I was like, actually, let's do a little add-on where we talk about what those are, because that would irritate the hell out of me if somebody had like said, oh, it's sort of like this, but not given me any examples. And as it turns out, one of the examples I had really wasn't an example of this, and I'll explain why. So blood is thicker than water. the actual phrase itself is completely misquoted. So the actual phrase is, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. What that means is the opposite. So basically what it's saying is the blood of the people who you choose to associate with is thicker than the water of your family roots. So that was one where I thought it was the same. I thought it was what I was talking about, and it's not really, but I'm going to include it in there. So if anybody's like, well, what was the blood one? But the one that I said about jack of all trades is a master of none, that is one where there's an additional piece to it which changes the meaning of it, which is a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. So what it's saying, a jack of all trades but master of none, normally implies that somebody who's doing a whole bunch of things is better than is worse than somebody who's mastered something. Whereas when you add the end of the sentence to it, what they're actually saying is actually oftentimes that's better than somebody who's just mastered one thing. And there was another example that I found when I was looking these up, which is curiosity killed the cat. So curiosity killed the cat, the end of the sentence is, but satisfaction brought it back. It's like curiosity killed the cat, but the satisfaction that was met through being curious was what brought it back. So again, it's like, and this is what I mean, that sometimes there are these phrases that we get used to saying that we're actually misquoting because we're only talking about the first part of it. And that's the same thing when it comes to our shoulds. Anything else you want to add to that other than you weren't aware of those?
No,
well, and it's funny because it makes sense, the jack of all trades, master of none. You might think that the master of none is the second part of it, but there's actually an additional part to it. So, but it's funny, like I didn't know any of these. I've only found all of these out like probably through social media or TikTok or Reels or whatever over the last few years. But it's interesting. I remember, I think the reason that it landed, I remembered though, was because when you're so used to saying something and it meaning a specific thing, then realizing that actually you're missing the part that completely transforms what you're saying, that really affected me. I was like, oh, I had no idea. And so I really wanted to make sure that we were like using that example when it comes to talking about shoulds, because if you only use that first part of the sentence, you end up thinking one thing is true when actually when you look at the whole thing, something completely different is the thing that materializes. So thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week. Between now and then, remember to stay safe, take care of yourself, and continue to meet your own needs. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye, friends.
That's it for today.
If you like what you heard
and would like to see some of Serena's awesome facial expressions,
check out the video podcast on YouTube.
And remember, if you're struggling to shift your shoulds, start by completing the sentence, and that will help you to figure it out.
Well, shit. It really is that simple.